Welcome to another episode. This is Ghost History Medium Investigation Reveal for location number 9. This was Boonton Falls in Boonton, New Jersey. And I just wanted to give you the heads up that I did delay the investigation reveal for this location. And it's because something really significant happened at this event and really tragic about less than a month after I had posted the video. And I just felt it wasn't right to immediately go ahead and do the investigation reveal. I'll go into more detail about the events that happened after our walkthrough, and they will be presented a little bit later in the video. So in this video, we're going to start off with Boonton Falls and Grace Lord Park. Then we'll go into the Boonton Iron Works, Morris Canal, which is about from 1830 to 1924. Then we'll finish with talking about the Rockaway River Gorge, the basin, and drownings. Okay, let's get oriented with Boonton Falls and Grace Lord Park. Like usual, this is a map on the left of where we were doing our investigation. The red marker is where we were, Grace Lord Park, in relation to where New York City is in northern New Jersey. When we go ahead and look at the closer up map on the right, this is the area of Boonton Gorge. Grace Lord Park is on the left at the top with the red marker. And where we stopped to do our investigation were these 3 stars. So the introduction is at the top star, the middle one was at the ruins, and the bottom one was closer to the river where the teenagers and children came forward. Here's a picture of the upper dam area that's actually been there for hundreds of years, and the Grace Lord Park with a playground, and the trail you can see starts just on the left-hand side. I did find this really cool postcard rendition of what this dam and area looked like back in the day. And on the left, you can see the dam hundreds of years ago. The wall in the background is still there. You can see it in the more recent picture from 2017. But the building in the background, which that yellow building is the Royal Scarlet Grocery, is no longer standing. Okay, let's get into the Boonton Iron Works, Morris Canal, around the time of 1830 to 1924. Okay, so the Morris Canal. Now, this is one of those quintessential historical marvels that occurred in northern Jersey. And it was designed because there was this intense need to get coal and iron ore that was now being produced in Pennsylvania out to the more urbanized areas of northern Jersey and New York area. So this canal was designed in the late 1820s. It was first opened in 1831 and it was decommissioned in 1924. It spans 102 miles and the elevation is 1,674 feet in total from beginning to end. It took mules and boats. Mules pulled the boats 5 days to go one way, and it was able to elevate these boats from locks and planes 100 feet at a time. And there were 23 of these planes and locks, and Boonton actually has a few of them. And our investigation took place at exactly where one of the planes was. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about that. But yes, this Morris Canal was extremely important to the development of Boonton, and it really had an effect on its landscape. So what does the canal have to do with how Boonton looks today? So before 1830s, 1820s, the majority of Boonton, the town, actually is where the current Boonton Reservoir is. There were paper mills, there was iron works, and the first iron works that's been recorded for the town was by Obadiah Baldwin, and I saw records of it being about 1710. I also saw information about it being from 1747. And the remains of this are actually under the reservoir today. So when the canal was made, the majority of the town moved itself up onto the hill where most of the industry continued. This is a historic picture of New Boonton when it was moved up onto the hill. You can see here there's a canal portion with a mule path on the left and lots of worker houses positioned on the hill. People weren't the only thing that moved up onto the hill. The iron industry moved up there as well. And this map is from 1860s and it's showing the Boonton Iron Works Company. And around 1830, it was called the New Jersey Iron Company. It was owned by D.B. Fuller and J.C. Lord. It flourished in this area for a few years, but it did close in 1876. And since the iron industry was so important to the health and wealth of Boonton, around that time, the town actually went into sort of a depression. And one thing that really saved the town economically was the silk industry. And I have a whole other video about the mill building down by the Rockaway River in this town that talks about the saving grace of the silk industry and those individuals who were involved in that production. But today for this video, we're really focusing on the Boonton Iron Works because our investigation walkthrough was exactly at the spot where the ruins of Boonton Iron Works are today. So to orient ourselves, the star on the left is where we did our introduction, which was right over that iron arch bridge. And our second spot was where I think we were right by the blast furnaces or the nail works. It's a little unknown. I wasn't really able to find anything definitive that, those arches that we were standing in front of were exactly the blast furnaces or the nail works. It seems to be general consensus is that that's the blast furnaces, which is so cool. And those archways were because water went in and out of them to power the blast furnaces. So that's super cool. As far as orientation, I was facing down towards the waterway, so down towards the river during the investigation. And as I was sitting there, I was like, oh, I'm seeing a train. So yeah, actually there was a train there. So there was the Morris and Railroad, which was the Boonton branch. Again, this brought in probably coal to help power the furnaces and brought out coal and out iron products to the railway. And also remember I was standing there and I was like, where's the canal? Where's the canal? Like, wouldn't the canal be right next to the reservoir? Well, actually the canal was behind me, up on the hill there. And the reason why we know it was up on the hill is because there was an inclined plane, number 7, just to my left. And I did at one point say, like, I'm seeing an incline, and that's exactly what I was seeing. Today, this is called Plain Street, and it's behind a whole row of houses on Main Street, and you can actually drive on Plain Street today and visit the spot. This is a depiction of what an inclined plane would have actually looked like in the area. So there's a lift lock with water, there's the canal boat, and then it actually goes up onto this level and it's pulled up through the top through hydropower and then into a new level at the top. And this is an actual picture of what the inclined plane looked like in Boonton. These are some more historical photos of the canal in Boonton, and I would absolutely be remiss if I didn't include any of the hardworking mules who were able to pull the boats on the canal. This is a picture of them on the left actually eating their dinner in their little face buckets, so I loved that. And the picture on the top is just, again, another depiction of where the buildings are located in relation to where we were doing our investigation. So especially in this area that we were doing our walkthrough, there was so much going on at the time. There was so much industry. Probably was really loud. There was the canal having an incline with the power, the hydropower. There was the furnaces, the nail works, the gorge, the river. So a lot was going on. There was a train too. Like, so much was going on just in this little small spot of this town. And what a cool opportunity to be able to walk through this and experience such a piece of history that was so important to the development of this town. So now we're going to talk about the Rockaway River Gorge itself, the basin, and unfortunately, drownings. One of the early places that I read that this gorge and the basin, which is a circular, calmer spot of water just below the waterfall and dam area, was referenced was back in this historical fiction book published in 1924. And it's about the Revolutionary War in this area in 1776, and it's called Scouts of 76. And there's so many actual historical individuals and historical facts and real life things that happened in Morris County, and especially in Boonton in this area. This even used to be a book that students are required to read in school for living in the town. And I loved this line that says, as this mile of seething rapids could not be navigated by the Indians in their canoes, they made 2 trails past the obstruction. The one to the north, being the present main street of the city of Boonton, originally cut along the old Indian path. It was by this trail the Indians toted their canoes over the portage. So I thought this was the coolest thing ever. So the road that we drove on to get to this location was Main Street in Boonton, and that road was actually an old Native American footpath. And obviously this gorge and this waterfall has been there for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, that footpath has so much history, and it's where we drive on today. Just blew my mind. And another thing in relation to the Native Americans in this area is there's a large boulder on the other side of the arch bridge that we did our introduction at. And this was the area where I felt really uncomfortable. I didn't really like being there. I didn't really like being next to this large boulder. And there is a big iron ring on the top of the boulder. And one of the names that this boulder has is Indian Boulder, and it's a glacial boulder that was put there back when the glaciers came down about 10,000 to 15,000 years ago. Another name for it is Washington's Boulder, but obviously this rock has been there for eons, and nobody who was building the Iron Works area nearby had the technology or wherewithal. Maybe there was a reason why they didn't move this rock. Might have had much more significance than we know of today, of why they didn't move it. But it just gives me this really uncomfortable feeling being around it. Now, I don't know if this had Native American origins in reality, or if it's just a place that a lot of mischief takes place because there's like a cave-ish section and it's really isolated and protected from other people seeing what's going on there. I think another thing that the Native Americans knew was that this area could be very dangerous. And the picture on the left is showing Boonton Falls when the water's at a reasonable level and it's really calm. And the picture on the right is showing an image of what the fall looks like after rain. And it can be significantly more rapid and significantly more dangerous depending on the water level in this area. This is what the falls looked like the day we were there. And as you can see, the falls, the circular basin, and the larger rock in the middle. Now, I didn't know this, but as we continued on our walk down through the ruins and down to a little bit lower area below the walkway over the arch bridge, I started getting individuals coming to me. They were all young, who had lost their lives there. And they were specifically talking about the barriers and issues with the barriers. Through my research, I was able to identify 14 different individuals who unfortunately lost their lives to the waters in this area. Now, this could be specifically around the bridge, the basin, and the dam area. And this goes back 80 years that 14 different people have lost their lives. Many of them were young individuals. About half of them were children or teenagers. And they kind of fall into two groups of either drowning by slipping in or drowning from swimming. These are just a smattering of the different articles that I was finding. This is a picture that shows an individual jumping into the waterfall, into the basin, and there's many people that are on the rocks there watching. So it was also called the deep hole, the basin, the gorge, the river. It was a really popular swimming spot for many, many, many years, especially since the reservoirs are off limits for swimming. Many people chose to swim in the river, and this was a deep area, and it was fun for kids to play around and swim in. There began to be a string of drownings starting in the late 1960s, and there were 4 of them in the 1970s. And this actually spawned public outrage of how is this possible? Why isn't the town doing anything? Why is there no barriers or no laws? And it wasn't until the 1970s when the mayor actually made a law to ban swimming in the area. So this was something that did come up in my reading, that this used to be a swimming hole, this used to be a swimming area, and then all of a sudden something changed and they weren't allowed to swim there, and that was absolutely true. But this new law didn't stop everybody, and youngsters still continue to try and swim in this area. And a few other individuals did continue to lose their lives to the waters. One of the most tragic things that did happen in this area was a 10-year-old boy in May 1996, which was the year that there was the blizzard of 1996, fell into the river and he did drown. This was such a shock to the entire town that his Boy Scout club and there were other groups that began to create more safety measures for people in this area, including a phone system out there, which you can still see today. This was actually created by his friends after he had passed away tragically. And I do believe this was the boy who came to me to talk about the location, especially the fact that he was talking about how he fell in and how he hit himself and then drowned, and then also how he was talking about the barriers, which would make more sense for somebody who had slipped in accidentally versus somebody who had intentionally gone swimming. And I do believe the other younger teenagers that came there were ones that had drowned while swimming because they were wearing bathing suits. And the remainder of the other teenagers that had lost their lives to this water were in fact swimming. Then something very unexpected happened right at this river gorge area. We filmed our walkthrough in December, and it took about a month before I was able to post the video, and our video was posted January 25th. And on February 23rd, a 11-year-old boy and his 35-year-old mother drowned in the river. They drowned just above the dam area, and this is a satellite schematic of the area. So you can see the X's where they drowned, and the gorge is just that white area to the right, and they were found just by the dam. What happened was it was all snow. As you could see when we were doing our video, it was snow on the ground too, and it had snowed a lot more. And there are no fencing, there's no barriers at all along either side of those areas of the river. And the mother and son were up here in Santaland, and it looked like their footsteps went into the water. Most likely the son probably slipped in, and the mother went in to save her son, and neither could swim, so they drowned. This was very difficult for me, because, I had just gone to this location and discussed these various tragedies that have happened here. But it was also almost like these children were coming to me with this warning, this almost like preemptive warning of, there needs to be something, there needs to be barriers, this needs to be improved. And then not 60 days later does a tragedy like this happen. The community was devastated, obviously. This was a major tragedy. And it just made me really think of the role of going to these places and allowing them to speak, and allowing these individuals who have passed speak, and their hopes of trying to prevent some type of tragedy in the future. So that's what I believe why those children ended up coming to me. I do believe that's probably why I was drawn to this area to read it in the first place, was, some hope of trying to communicate. And I think, did I fail this family? Could I have communicated with the mayor and the town sooner to have something done? I don't honestly think there was anything I really could have done. But it did really make me pause and think of, these places want us to talk. These people want to talk and help. So this was the reason why I delayed this investigation reveal, out of respect to the family and respect of the situation. I also did want to make a note that I was not able to find anything in the newspapers or anything that I could find in record about an individual who had had an overdose in the area, although it's still possible, but I couldn't find anything to confirm that individual that came to me. That was a little more intense down by the ruins. So that wraps up the investigation reveal for Boonton Falls. Again, this is a public place you can go to and walk around and really experience its history in the ruins, but also pay respects to those who have lost their lives to the waters. And please, please, please be safe here.